Madara Uchiha versus Aizen. Naruto versus Bleach. Death Battle. By, of course, Death Battle. I've heard a lot of people recommend this. I have some familiarity with Naruto and a little bit of familiarity with Bleach. So I figured, let's give this a whirl, shall we? I honestly, I'm really curious to see where this ends up.
This episode of Death Battle is sponsored by Raycon.
Raycons give you absolutely amazing audio quality no matter where you go or what you do, whether you're getting pumped up, winding down, working, or working out.
And they're a perfect gift for anyone on your list. And as your gift to yourself, they start at half the price of other premium audio brands.
Plus, they're available in 5 stylish colors. And with free shipping and returns, gifting is easier than ever this year with Raycon.
There's nothing more soothing than listening to my favorite tunes on some Raycons when I'm out squirrel hunting with my dune buggy.
What is wrong with you? Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/deathbattle and use code HOLIDAY to get 15% off site-wide.
I was going to say 9 out of 10. I think I'll lean 10 out of 10 on that. It was, yes, at the beginning, but it got it out of the way. You have the rest of the video to watch. It was very well done, very personable. I think maybe the audio could have been a little more crisp. Maybe, as like, you know, an audio engineer could probably look at that and maybe critique that more than I could. I would say between a 9 and a 10 out of 10. I would lean on 9. I think it was a good ad read, especially so early. Yeah, I thought, okay, so I heard they're independent now.
Madara Uchiha, the legendary messianic shinobi from Naruto.
Sosuke Aizen, the Soul Reaper who stood upon the heavens from Bleach.
We may dream of glory, but these two have the will to power to take it by force and claim a seat among the gods.
They're the biggest, baddest anime bosses around, and not even death can stop them. Ghost versus zombie. Let's go.
So here's the thing we do have to look at, because I have talked about Naruto power scaling a bit. Not in any real authoritative capacity, right? But I've talked about, you know, Itachi versus Pain and stuff. When we talk about Madara, and when you start talking about anyone with this, you know, Rinne, 6 paths, right? You really have to make sure you're setting who we're scaling against, right? So Madara in, say, base, like Warring States period versus, you know, him versus Hashirama in Final Valley versus Edo Tensei Resurrected Madara versus 6 Paths Madara. Well, I guess versus Revive Madara and then 6 Paths Madara. These are all different tiers of Madara. I'm not as familiar with Aizen. I know him with Hougyoku, what was the Hougyoku, sorry, excuse me, cube at the end. I know he fused with that, and he has some plot relevance, that's plot things going on there. I'm not nearly as caught up with Bleach as I would like to, so I apologize on that. I assume that it's going to be fair, and they will probably mention what they're comparing it to specifically, because there is a lot to talk about depending on the form.
He's Wiz and I'm Boomstick.
And it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle.
I'm ready for this.
Endless destruction, countless dead, a plot to conquer the planet. The ninja world was at war.
For the 4th time, only one man could save humanity from itself, from beyond the grave.
The same man who orchestrated this war in the first place in order to end all wars forever. Madara Uchiha.
From birth, war was the only thing the young Madara knew, and there was no ninja he liked fighting more than Hashirama Senju. They're basically ninja Romeo and Juliet.
Belonging to opposing clans, Madara and Hashirama were forced to battle each other for years, all the while dreaming of a better future.
Their bromance eventually overcame their clan's differences and the two groups merged, creating the village of Konoha.
But Madara wasn't satisfied with Hashirama's dream of peace through cooperation. He desired an immortal peace through total domination.
Everyone else thought that was crazy, so he bounced, and then he came back to wage war against the village he helped build. Well, that didn't last long, huh?
Madara's megalomania was perhaps—
You know what? That was honestly a very good way to break that down. I think that, sure, maybe if you wanted to stretch it out, right? Sure, you could have explained a little more. But I think as a, like Bricky with Warhammer, right? It's a pretty good, like, this is kind of what you need to know to get into it. This catches most everyone up fairly quickly. I actually really like that summary.
Fated, considering he is in fact the reincarnation of the demigod Indra Otsutsuki and the inheritor of his immensely powerful chakra.
basically physical and spiritual energy that makes ninja magic. Madara specializes in fire and wood style jutsus, which just seems irresponsible to put those together, like a gender reveal party waiting to happen.
His wood is especially impressive, considering it's the only style of elemental jutsu that can create life.
Okay, so here's where I actually will take a little bit of criticism in the professional capacity. If we're gonna talk, yes, obviously he has access to Katon, right? He has access to fire style. He has access to fire release. Hashirama cells. Sure, I guess we could really argue that, you know, after, you know, Valley, the Final Valley, right? Realistically, he had access to that. He had access to wood style stuff like that. If we're gonna talk about the Storm Release Light Fang, right? If we're gonna talk about that, that's very specifically a 6 paths thing, from what I understand. So I do, especially Kuchiyose Tentails, right? Kuchiyose Jubi. That's I guess he could Kuchiyose Getamaza, right? He could summon the Geto statue technically, but I don't know. That's a hard one because it starts to get a little fuzzy when events start to happen, right? But like you have, like, realistically, I'm really nitpicking here. My biggest probably gripe would be providing simple Light Fang in here. That's the one that would be 6 paths specific.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Madara can even use his Gunbai to absorb ninjutsu and return it right back to sender. You know you're a badass when you can take on armies with just a friggin' fan.
Madara has torn apart hordes of ninja without breaking a sweat, taken a beating from every tailed beast at once, and even defeated the 5 Kage, some of the strongest shinobi in the world.
The Raikages even stated to be fast enough to move at light speed, and even weaker ninja like Orochimaru have dodged literal photon beams.
But Madara's greatest tool is the one born from his very bloodline, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. These magical eyes massively enhance his perception down to the cellular level, allowing him to predict movements, see the flow of chakra, and summon the mighty perfect Susano'o.
So also, and this is actually one of those things that gets criticized a little bit in Naruto as a series, Madara was, for all intents and purposes, sealed inside of the Sand Mausoleum right after Madara was revived. Gaara sealed him in the Sand Mausoleum. So, on one hand, you want to call BS because Madara hacks his way out of it, right? Because he's sealed in the Sand Mausoleum, he summons his Susanoo and breaks his way out of the mausoleum. However, that's until I went back and watched Sasuke versus Danzo, because Sasuke, even with a Danzo sealing jutsu on him, was still able to summon his Susanoo to be able to combat Danzo, and thus to actually break away from his sealing jutsu. And this was actually when he was missing his Sharingan, which does either lead credence to some weird hacks plot point, which Deus Ex Madara, as I like to call it, is a thing, or it leads into, once again, I feel like we're getting a little nitpicky here. We're splitting hairs in Naruto lore. The Susanoo, as long as it is unlocked, could potentially not even require Sharingan to even activate, which is interesting to think about.
The Sharingan can also cast a genjutsu that'll trap anyone that looks at it in an illusion, and even break them out of those same illusions.
In Sasuke's case, even ones as strong as Itachi's Tsukuyomi, which can warp your perception of time. Itachi used it on a fellow Uchiha and made her live out her entire life in the span of 1/100th of 1/1000th of 1/1,000,000th of a second.
And when she died in the illusion, she died for real.
I was under the impression she died because of the stress it put on her brain. Because living an entire life in, what, a picosecond? Pretty stressful.
Sasuke could break out of it. Madara could too, easily.
And once again, contention a little bit as well. Itachi was not at full power. Itachi also reasonably made it easier for Sasuke to break out of his Tsukuyomi. That one is kind of like expanded lore. You kind of like, okay, like, yeah, this was the reason for this, right? Well, not even expanded. Like, yeah, reason for this. Itachi not at full. This was supposed to be his downfall with Sasuke orchestrating it. Still, breaking out the Tsukuyomi, Sasuke would have to have a requisite enough power level to do that.
After grafting some of Hashirama's cells onto himself, he now
would always have a piece of his Romeo inside him.
Yeah.
This is my ship, Wiz. Stop looking at me like that.
He not only gained a healing factor strong enough to regenerate from having half his body vaporized, but also the terrifying Rinnegan.
AKA the big chungus of all eye magic. The ringy eyes let Madara absorb chakra and ninjutsu, create invisible limbo clones, see and remove your soul from your body, and summon giant-ass meteors, as if he needed any more fucking powers.
There is actually debate on what Madara's Mangekyo ability is. I've heard debate about Limbo actually being one of his Mangekyo things. Others also argue his Mangekyo power, because the Mangekyo kind of grants a wish in a way. Sasuke wishes to burn away the world. Itachi wishes to keep the peace, right? Even at the cost of himself and his illusions. That's the Tsukuyomi, right? Madara seeking more and more power could just be a self-amp, but it also could be some kind of Naruto effect where more of him, Limbo clones, could lead to a stronger version of him. So that's one of those that's like actual like fan canon debate territory, but I figured it'd be important enough to point out.
While the Rinnegan lacks some of the Sharingan's unique abilities, he can switch between them at will.
After tearing the ninja world a new asshole, Madara was finally defeated in a climactic battle for the ages by his BFF, and thus the life of a legendary shinobi came to an end in the arms of his one true love. Or did it?
All right, this is gonna get pretty crazy, but just bear with me. Fearing a defeat in battle, Madara set a time-delayed jutsu that would posthumously rewrite reality and bring him back to life. And it worked! So Madara tricked another Uchiha, Obito, into witnessing his best friend murdering his other best friend. Then he tasked Obito with manipulating the world into another war. Meanwhile, he gave his own Rinnegan to Nagato with the goal of getting it back after he was brought back to life the second time with the outer path because he died again. Makes sense?
You know, when you put it that way, yeah, when you put it that way, it definitely sounds a little more convoluted than it is. No, it's pretty convoluted. To be fair, I've also been in this. I've also been in Naruto for the past 10+ years. I used to play the CCG. I started at set 24, Sage's Legacy, right up through the end of it. Set 28, Ultimate Ninja Storm 3. So I've been in Naruto for a hot minute, and this is an outsider looking in. This is some pretty Kingdom Hearts level storytelling.
Nah, that'll never work.
You're right, it didn't! So Obito went out and got the Rinnegan back from Nagato's corpse, because he died. Then Kabuto brought Madara back to life, and he got his eyes back from Obito after some backstabbing. Then he sealed the awakened Ten Tails within himself in order to gain ultimate power and create the world's greatest nap time ever!
Yeah.
Look what you people have done to him.
No. As a Naruto fan, I accept that.
Think Ten Tails' power would be awesome, but those stinky 8 balls of doom are so lame.
Don't let their size fool you. These truth-seeking orbs are in another league. The Ten Tails is strong enough to wipe continents off the map, and the orbs can be shaped into weapons that will completely disintegrate anything they come into contact with. Not even ninja
So yin and yang release are technically different, and you have generally people will have one or the other. Yin release, oh god, I'd need to remember. I think it's yin release deals with genjutsu, and I think yang release is more physical. I think Sasuke has access to, but you can have like yin release and yang release, but not yin yang release, because Naruto's strange. Yin yang release is actually what the Ten Tails would give you access to, and yin yang release is like the ability to like create things, like actual hacks, OP god powers. Yin release and yang release alone, so yin release, comma, yang release, each of these separately, or in tandem if you have yin release and yang release, does not lead. It's kind of like how Haku has like ice style, right? Like early Naruto, Haku's able to manipulate ice, right? But that's because they have a Kekkei Genkai. They have genetics that say, hi, you get to do the thing. Technically, if you had enough know-how, sure. Say you had somebody like Kakashi able to use, I don't know, water style, Suiton, and then you have him use Futon, wind style. Sure, maybe you could use the wind to cool down the water to a point where it might freeze, but you're still not able to actively do ice release. You cannot do that because you do not have the requisite Kekkei Genkai, right? So think of that, but yin-yang release. You may have yin release, you may have yang release. You could have both yin and yang release, but you do not have yin-yang release, yin-yang release. Straight. I spent way too much on this lore. I've spent way too long in Naruto. This please help.
Directed through Edo Tensei like Minato could regenerate limbs lost to the truth-seeking orbs, which means they had to erase his literal spirit itself.
Madara's power was so insane, he was considered comparable to the original Sage of Six Paths, the dude who helped create the friggin' moon.
Yeah.
And when Madara created meteors, they were large enough to show up against the curvature of the Earth. Measuring their size and estimating the height at which Madara lifted them, they'd have to possess a potential energy of at least 372 petatons of TNT.
He was even fast enough to keep up with 8 Gates Guy, who kicked hard enough to bend space. Madara even has an attack where he hawks light speed loogies.
Considering even base Madara has displayed speeds on par with Light Timing Ninja, we know Ten Tails Madara would have to be significantly faster thanks to the Ten Tails' power.
With virtually no one left to oppose him, Madara's plot was finally in the endgame. He awakened the Rin Sharingan, and with the God Tree summoned, he cast the infinite Tsukuyomi, spreading the tree's roots across the entire planet and capturing every single person in the world. This would enslave all of humanity in an endless dream world, free of conflict forever. Peace through total domination.
Manipulating this tree with his chakra would have involved physically spreading its roots through and around the entire Earth in mere moments. Estimating the tree's mass and the speed at which the roots were moved, his chakra must have released an energy exceeding 1 yotaton of TNT.
And this was with just one jutsu. Is there a character that could possibly even touch Madara Uchiha?
So when we talk about actual Rinne Sharingan Madara, technically, Naruto and Sasuke didn't even fight him. We got absolutely, God, what word do I use there? We got absolutely sleazed out of that fight. Because remember what happened at that fight? Black Zetsu literally pierces Madara and is just like, nah, I'm Kaguya's will. And then Madara turns into Kaguya, right? We never even got the finale. We never got 6 Paths Naruto and 6 Paths Sasuke versus Rinne Sharingan Madara. So technically, I mean, sure, you could argue maybe he has a facsimile of power that maybe Kaguya did, or is like maybe like a magnitude or 2 less than Kaguya. But he also has intellect, in my opinion, that Kaguya did not. Kaguya had a big F-off hammer, okay? She had chakra to warp between dimensions. Madara grew up in the Warring States period. That man was a genius. That man is actually built different.
Kishimoto himself didn't even know. Madara's power was so overwhelming, the only thing that could take him down was treachery.
Even the man with the magic eyes couldn't see that coming.
All that was left was his old friend Hashirama, there to comfort him in his final moments.
Oh, so
Just
good.
like Romeo and Juliet. For never was there a story of more woe than this of Hashirama and his Madabro. I read it in iambic pentameter.
Is there a gas leak in here?
Now the real fun begins.
I think his English VA does a good job, but there is something about his Japanese VA that is absolutely perfect.
The Soul Society was in chaos. One of its leading Shinigami was set to be executed under suspicious circumstances. A band of humans from the living world had invaded to save her, and Sosuke Aizen, captain of the 5th Division of the Gote 13, was dead. Murdered.
What
Or was
dastardly
he?
mastermind could have been behind all this? He'd have to be a galaxy-brained 5D chess master.
The man responsible was, in fact, Sosuke Aizen.
Little is known about the man's past, only that he isn't a man, a human man, but a soul reaper.
These Shinigami are spiritual beings who ferry lost souls to the afterlife and purify those who have turned evil in the living world.
They're badass anime wizard Grim Reaper swordsmen. Though Aizen himself was hardly that cool. I mean, just look at those glasses. Dork.
But this Clark Kent was harboring a secret. Aizen had spent years attempting to develop the means to ultimate power, ruining the lives of many of his colleagues via his twisted experiments.
Oh, Oh, so when Aizen does it, he's a supervillain, but when you do it to me, it's shut the hell up, Boomstick. You're under NDA, and I know about the stuff you've done.
As a Shinigami, Aizen's body is made of Reishi, being spirit matter, and empowered by Hougyoku, being spirit energy. Entities made of Reishi are completely invisible to anyone without specific supernatural awareness, though a Shinigami's body is still tangible and can be damaged normally.
And with his Hougyoku energy, Aizen can create incredibly powerful blasts. He's so strong, weaker beings will literally disintegrate if they get too close to him.
This is due to his Reiatsu, a localized spiritual pressure exerted as a result of his enormous power.
He also knows tons of Kido, or spells. He can create force fields, bend the light around him to make him impossible to detect, fire concentrated bolts of lightning, and absorb the energy from his surroundings to make giant-ass energy dragons.
Perhaps.
So here's the thing that we get into, and this is where we have to potentially give a reasonable assumption that the Sharingan, specifically the evolution of the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, right, can be able to detect him, because otherwise Aizen would be able to bend light around him, would be able to kind of erase, quote unquote, his presence within the battlefield, and thus be able to absolutely just go ham on Madara. Madara is tanky, don't get me wrong, but Aizen, from what I understand, does have some pretty big attacks. Now, I do have to make the relevant disclosure here. I read up through midway through Wako Mundo about where Nell comes into play, about where Grimjow, actually, the Grimjow fight was. I did not, just because the manga I was reading in the school library at the time did not get the issues past that. I missed the Okiura fight. I missed the Wako Mundo finale. I also missed the finale of Aizen with the Hougyoku cube, right? So I don't have all the necessary context for Aizen. I wanted to make that abundantly clear. I have more for Madara than I do him. But I feel that I'm going to be fair in giving Aizen certain concessions, right? So the reasonable assumption we make here is that the Sharingan are going to be able to see him. They are going to be able to see his body. They're going to be able to see him, right? Just assume it's, anime magic, right? To be able to do that. And if anything, sure, I guess you could argue for using 6 paths specifically, because 6 paths, something, inhuman sensory ability, sure. We have to give Madara the benefit of the doubt to be able to see him. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the other interesting interaction here comes down to such a big spiritual pressure being able to literally vaporize people around him. I wonder if that would actually have an effect if Madara casts his Susano'o, right? If it's going to be a dot effect, if it's going to be a consistently applied pressure, or if it's going to absolutely just tear through the Susano'o. I think that those are interesting points to bring up.
His deadliest Kido is Kurohitsugi. After an extensive incantation, Aizen surrounds his target in an enormous black coffin that distorts space and time and tears its victims apart.
Love it.
Aizen's plotting finally came to fruition during the invasion of the Soul Society, where he faked his death using his greatest weapon, his Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu.
A Shinigami Zanpakuto is a magical sword that possesses a sentient spirit. Kyoka Suigetsu gives Aizen complete control over his victim's senses the instant they lay eyes on the sword. This complete hypnosis traps its victims in a nearly perfect illusion that Aizen can manipulate at will.
Ah, I see now. This is actually why this would be a really good fight. And if there was Itachi at full power, I think this would be a very interesting battle of mental, genjutsu sort of abilities. That would be interesting. We have to remember that Madara is not necessarily the best practitioner of genjutsu. It has been argued, I think in good faith, that Itachi would have more finesse and be better at genjutsu than Madara would. Madara is able to, yes, look at the Raikage and put him under a simple genjutsu, but in terms of, the finesse, even the Tsukuyomi, because just because you have the Mangekyo does not mean you have all of the Mangekyo powers. We assume at this point, if you awaken the Mangekyo, everyone at this point has the Susanoo, right? Everybody got it. It's your participation trophy, right? But Itachi got Amaterasu, which realistically, there's been debate. I've had actually good faith debates where if it's been passed down for the Uchiha family or not. And the Tsukuyomi, right? Sasuke got Amaterasu, right? Once again, we see that this specific one, peak fire style, peak Katon, was passed through the Uchiha bloodline. And then he obviously got Enton, flame control, right? Which in the CCG is, I think in the actual lore as well, is a combination of fire style and lightning style. So you have that. Shisui got Kotoa Matsukami, right? We have different people having different Mangekyo abilities. So dispelling right now, Madara is not going to have Tsukuyomi. Probably nothing nearly as powerful. Can he use Genjutsu? Yes. Will he be affected by Genjutsu? I point to Naruto and Sasuke and Itachi versus Kabuto, where they, even though they had Mangekyo, and Sasuke at that point did have the Eternal Mangekyo, Kabuto was still able to affect them with Genjutsu, very specifically sound-based Genjutsu, using Toyuya's flute, right? So I think that Madara could actually be susceptible to this,
making himself virtually immune to attacks while his opponents are sitting ducks.
It's so strong that it kept a group of ex-Soul Reapers known as the Visored trapped for over 100 years without them even knowing it. It's one of the most broken powers ever and the definition of anime bullshit.
But it was all worth it when he perfected his ultimate creation, the Hougyoku, an immensely powerful reality-warping device that, quote, materializes the user's wishes.
In Aizen's case, it realized his desire to become the strongest being in the universe. With it, he can heal any of his wounds, even when half his body is vaporized. And more importantly, it exponentially increases his power over time through evolution by turning him into a horrifying butterfly monster man.
A being eventually strong enough to dethrone and replace the Soul King, the deity that controls the cosmic balance.
Yeah, this starts getting into territory. I have no clue about Thousand Year Blood War. I have no clue about anything past the Aizen fight. It's going to be fascinating. I hear Yubak is absolutely disgusting in terms of anime power scaling.
Even a minor disruption to the Soul King's influence led to the three worlds of Earth, the Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo to start physically collapsing.
Then it implied that the Soul King has to be outputting enough energy to hold all these places together at all times.
Considering each should be roughly the same size, this would require an energy of over 140 zetatons of TNT.
Aizen is powerful enough to vaporize mountains as a side effect of a sword swing. His casual energy blasts can disintegrate huge chunks of the earth, and he can take on armies with just his Ryatsu alone.
He even defeated the rest of the Gote 13 without so much as breaking a sweat.
So he should be way stronger than Soul Society heavy hitters like Kenpachi, who sliced this 120-kilometer wide asteroid to pieces.
That's roughly the width of Great Britain. An asteroid of this size would have to carry a kinetic energy of at least 44 petatons of TNT.
So comparing Madara versus Aizen, I think Aizen's tempo is faster. For, say, Aizen to be able to deal with a meteor of this size, I feel Madara would have to have a longer channel time, which in itself, as we see in actual, say, duels and stuff, right? If you have a faster tempo than your opponent, generally that can lead to victory, right? If, say, me and my opponent both had a rapier or a spear, right? And say my opponent was going to do a flourish to try and expel my implement one way or the other, and then try to strike at me, which is 2 beats, right? 1, 2, versus a single strike of 1, that is 1 beat to their 2 beat. Thus, you can close out the game. Now, does this always work? Obviously not. It depends on skill level, depends on knowledge, depends on a number of factors. But generally, who reasonably would win? If someone's going to take 3 seconds to do a strike versus someone who's going to take 1 second to do a strike, who has more favorable odds?
And Aizen was so badass, he literally transcended other Shinigami in power. He was in a whole other dimension from the rest of them.
Until he fought Ichigo Kurosaki.
The battle we've all been waiting for. Way before this in the Soul Society arc, Ichigo was already as fast as lightning. And by this point, after all his power boosts, he'd even be faster than light. Hell, even weaker characters like this lady can dodge light beams.
Though their fight was epic, Ichigo had transcended the Shinigami as well, and even Aizen himself. Feeding upon his insecurities, the Hougyoku abandoned Aizen, who was quickly defeated and imprisoned within the bottommost level of the Soul Society's prison. Aizen was left alone. His great power he sacrificed so much to achieve was gone forever.
Or was it? Somehow he ended up getting even stronger than before. But what made him so strong? Could it be the chair?
It's not the chair. It could theoretically be due to the chair's restraints keeping his Ryatsu from properly releasing, building it up within him until he was stronger in base than he was at his previous max.
Nah, it's definitely the chair.
It's the chair.
Ooh, since the chair could still hold him after he got stronger, wouldn't that make it even stronger than him? Even stronger than the Soul King? All hail the mighty Chair-sama, most powerful being in all of Bleach.
I can agree to this. This just makes sense.
He even managed to hold his own against the Quincy warlord Yua, who absorbed the power of the Soul King himself. He even used Kyoka Suigetsu to trick him, and Yuha's a dude who can literally see every possible future all at the same time. All according to Keikaku, bitches!
And after standing among the gods themselves, Aizen returned to captivity and pondered the meaning of his existence.
Even trapped in a prison, sealed off in a different dimension with a 20,000-year sentence, he remains the most dangerous being in the world.
Who knows what schemes are brewing behind those cold, calculating eyes? No compassion, no empathy, only the drive for power.
Actually, don't we technically know that nothing came of it? At least nothing as we know of. Didn't Bleach technically end? I was under the impression that... No, or was the anime that ended? I don't know what the current state of the manga is. I thought the manga had finished. But then again, I also don't know. It's fascinating looking at things like this because I don't have that context, and I'm super eager to learn about that. Oh, it's the Hell Arc. A new Bleach game came out in 2025. I don't remember what the title is, but it actually goes up through the Wako Mundo arc to the Aizen fight. I've been itching to play that on stream.
No one has ever stood at the top. Neither you nor me. From now on, I alone will stand at the top.
I dig it. Very good summary.
All right, the combatants are set, and we've run the data through all possibilities.
But first, if you want the confidence of an anime supervillain, check out Blue Chew.
This episode is brought to you by Blue Chew.
The secret to, well, pretty much anything is confidence.
And that's why Blue Chew delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis in chewable tablet form right to your door.
Yep, and did we mention you get Blue Chew's tablets at a fraction of the cost of those other guys?
Getting ready to go is simple. Just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days.
Plus, it's all done online, which means no more awkward conversations with your doctor or waiting in line at the pharmacy.
And you can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever.
So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, Blue Chew can help.
And we've got a special deal for you. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code BATTLE at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping.
That's BlueChew.com, promo code BATTLE to receive your first month free.
Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. Thanks, Blue Chew, for sponsoring the show.
But right now, it's time for a death battle!
I loved that. I will give that a 10 out of 10 because so what's going on here, right? What the philosophy of this design is, right? Say you're watching something like, them sports ball games, right? Or you're watching, not what I do, right? SCA, HEMA, anything like that, but actual like martial arts that you'd see on, big TV network, right? How they'll sell like ad spots or like you're watching that football game, them footballs, and they'll just, after they call a timeout or having to review something, right? And thus it cuts to an ad. That's what it's trying to do. And I think that's actually really clever. I actually really love that it was a Blue Chew ad. I was not expecting that, but to have it just kind of like, and before we get into the battle, thanks to today's sponsor, insert sponsorship here. I think it was very tastefully done, though, as just a simple zoom on the logo. I love that. I would give that a 10. I'm ready to see where this goes. They'll probably transition up through the forms.
You can see me.
I can see everything.
So technically he is, because of the black sclera, he is technically in Edo Tensei base form. Okay.
Did you see that?
Madara will not have the speed to keep up with that. This part's great here, yeah.
Drown in despair!
It broke. Shame he's a zombie.
I would expect nothing more from a human.
Animation thing, he would not actually, quote unquote, leak red liquid. He would actually, that's an artistic thing. That because he's an Edo Tensei zombie, they're surrounded in ash and stuff like that. That would actually not happen.
Okay. Mere parlor tricks. Don't get so full of yourself.
Okay, Aizen ranked up super early. Okay.
Hado 90, Kuro Hitsugi.
Perfect Susano'o. No, okay. Right to 6 paths. The irony, actually, that even though most people are going to see this as an amp, that technically is Madara's mistake here. Because Madara, in Edo Tensei form, especially if there's something like... Because 6 paths can be negated. It's like 6 paths, especially the Gododama, the orbs we were talking about. Because if that hits a reanimation in Edo Tensei Zombie, that can technically undo the jutsu. But Aizen, at least here, does not explicitly have anything that could delete that. So technically, Madara has just made himself mortal for a physical amp. Interesting to think about. Perfect, okay.
Hado 99, Goryu Tenmetsu.
Can the Susano'o stand it? Hey, Limbo.
Thrill of battle, the pounding of my heart, the taste of my own blood. I love it!
Okay.
You almost had me there, you tricky bastard.
There's the bite guy. Yeah.
Nothing escapes my illusions.
I like the references that too.
Know your place.
Okay. Okay. I like that. We're using, what is it? Human path?
What a wonderful dance.
Okay, I'm gonna be real. I think I agree with that, though. I was actually weighting this in terms of Aizen. If we are under the impression that we're using human path, because I'm pretty sure that was human path, to be able to tear out his soul and throw it into something else, because that was one of the 6 paths of pain, right? The human path, Ningen, to be able to rip people's souls out and what do you call it? Interrogate them, right? And then throw them to the ghetto statue. Or not the ghetto statue. It's called, what is it called? Heretical. It's called Heretical Icon in the TCG. Oh my god. Whatever the stupid thing that Naraka Path summons. I can't remember the name offhand. I can agree with that conclusion. So I will say, full disclosure, I think that there was a leap in logic there. We did start off with Madara with the Black Sclera, so clearly it was Edo Tensei Madara. Edo Tensei Madara, in lore, could not actually rank up into 6 paths. The break in logic there is that Madara did need to... Let me get through this and then we'll watch the analysis. I want to note this really quick, though, because Madara needed to be alive, get Art of Renewed Rebirth. He had to have Obito revive him because technically he is nerfed as an Edo Tensei zombie. He was technically immortal, though. So we're missing the half step there to be able to have a live Madara, be able to use the 10-tail coffin seal to be able to seal the Jubi inside of him and thus being able to rank up into 6 paths Madara. So my big thing is, I mean, we're assuming that everyone just gets their abilities, right? This is meant as a good faith rank up, and I actually really like this fight, and I like the analysis done on it, and I'm really interested in the post analysis. I do think that there is a leap in logic and conflating of the two, because either Madara is alive in base, in which especially getting absolutely chunked by Aizen early on leads to Aizen just outright winning. But we clearly see with Black Sclera, the face marks, you know, the cracks in the ash and stuff, that he's clearly Edo Tensei reanimated. But if he's Edo Tensei reanimated, he can't rank up into 6 paths form. So I'm curious if they're going to bring that up.
KO! Of course Madara won! He fake died twice for his 5D chess plan, while Aizen only fake died once.
Sure. Aizen and Madara were extremely evenly matched in raw power and speed. By our calculations, Madara spreading the God Tree's roots with his chakra was about 7 times more powerful than the best that Aizen could scale to with his rare Yoku, and both ended up being roughly as fast as each other.
While there are a range of possible feats and numbers to go with to determine their limits, the point is they're always going to be close to even.
Which means the main thing that mattered here were their powers and how they countered each other. Madara's enormous variety of abilities eventually overwhelmed Aizen.
While Soul Reapers like Aizen may be invisible to regular people, the Rinnegan allowed Madara to see invisible spiritual beings like his own Limbo clones. Hell, the Rinnegan lets you see and remove human souls, and that's exactly what a Soul Reaper is.
Both Chakra and Rare Yoku utilize spirit energy and operated in similar ways, being formed into attacks like ninjutsu and kido. That meant that Madara's ability to absorb ninjutsu allowed him to nullify the vast majority of Aizen's range attacks, and even dispel his force fields.
And despite how...
Thank you, Predapath, because... Oh, God, Predapath is such BS. It breaks scaling.
OP Aizen's complete hypnosis was, Sharingan users can break out of illusions no sweat, even ones as powerful as Itachi's Tsukuyomi. And since Madara can switch between the Rinnegan and the Sharingan at will, he'd be able to break out of an illusion anytime he wanted.
Aizen's illusions...
He can switch between the two. We do see this with the Raikage, right? He swaps from his Rinnegan back down to his Sharingan, his Eternal Mangekyo, to be able to put the Raikage under a Genjutsu. So thus leading into, it is noted that the Rinnegan itself seemingly is not able to cast ninjutsu or Genjutsu, but you can just kind of rank down temporarily to your Eternal Mangekyo to be able to cast Genjutsu that you need to.
Are nearly perfect, but fellow Captain Unohana was able to subconsciously notice its flaws. With an eye as perceptive as the Sharingan, which can spot imperfections in Genjutsus all the time, it was only inevitable that Madara would be able to quickly break out.
However, the same couldn't be said for Aizen, who never showed any resistance to the kind of mental illusions Madara can create.
Even setting illusions aside, the sheer quantity of offensive options at Madara's disposal, whether it be his clones, meteors, or monsters summoned by the Rinnegan, kept Aizen constantly on the back foot.
But none of that mattered if they couldn't kill each other, and both had pretty insane healing factors that could recover from just about anything, except for those pesky 8 balls of doom.
Madara's truth-seeking orbs were capable of completely molecularly annihilating spiritual beings and preventing them from regenerating. And again, Aizen was a spiritual being.
Since Aizen lacked the ability to do the same irreversible damage to Madara, the ghost of the Uchiha had exactly what he needed to put this actual ghost down for good.
Aizen was an unbelievably overpowered foe, but Madara's own powers, illusions, and devastating truth-seeking orbs allowed him to crush the ex-Shinigami.
Sosuke should have kept his eyes on the prize.
Got him.
Do you feel any shame at all?
Moderately. Ha! Double pun. Suck it, Wiz.
The winner is Madara Uchiha.
I love how chat's like, I didn't know Kip knew so much about Naruto. Oh, my sweet summer child. I've told the story about how I was doing senior project in high school, and I literally blitzed it in like a week, 3 weeks until it was due. So I procrastinated it. Do you know what I did in class all day? I read the Naruto wiki. I looked at the Naruto TCG. I read the manga as it came out, and I read the L5R wiki. That was my entire last 2 years of high school. Naruto and Legend of the Five Rings.
Thank you for watching this episode of Death Battle. If you're looking to get some merch for the holidays, we've got a bunch of great new items from Death Battle and Rooster Teeth. From hoodies to t-shirts to socks to beer steins. Click that box and start shopping now.
I'm going to be honest. I think this is a very in good faith piece. I think that this was really good. I actually went in with a Aizen bias. I think that the conclusion did make sense. I think that if we are reasonably, because there's reasonable shortcuts in Naruto, right? Where Obito is confirmed, yes, Obito can physically use the 6 paths of pain, even though he has access to one Rinnegan. But the shorthand there is because Kakashi, Guy, Naruto have already fought pain, thus the abilities wouldn't really work on them. So it was effectively a shorthand to be like, look, yes, I have these abilities. No, I'm not really going to use them, right? That kind of thing. I think that the conclusion did make sense. I think that this was a very good faith video. I will also bring up the factor, if we're going to talk about, because the Gododama, the orbs, right? Which his staff is one of them. They kind of break interactions. One of the interactions, which I pose to Naruto fans out there, what happens if a Gododama hits the Yata mirror, right? Itachi's, it's comprised of all 5 elements, therefore it reflects all ninjutsu because it switches to the type effectively. So Sasuke casting Kirin, which is lightning release, right? On Susano'o, Itachi Susano'o reflects it, right? Or if you cast a fireball, that's Itachi Susano'o shield, it will reflect it, right? So what happens if the Gododama hits the shield? Does it crack the shield? Does it break the shield? Does it reflect? The Gododama will lead to a lot of interesting lore interactions. And if we're talking about Aizen's blade, right, Zanpakuto, being a sentient spiritual being inside the blade, would the sword touching the Gododama, Aizen's sword clashing with Madara's staff, could that actually break his Zanpakuto? And I think that's interesting to think about. I do think this is a very good faith piece. I'm curious what people think of it. I hadn't reacted to them previously. I'm very glad I did now. I actually really enjoyed the breakdown. I loved, I had familiarity with both of them. If I start going into things that I'm not super familiar with, I might not be able to provide as great a commentary. But honestly, I thought this was good. I thought this was great. Thank you for watching. Definitely go check out the original video if you have not. Let me know if you're surprised how hard I've weaponized my tism in regards to Naruto and Legend of the Five Rings. And I'll see all of you in the next one.